Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Philly Film Brothers podcast. I am Chris Pierdomenico. I'm here with my brother Dave Pierdomenico. And today we are going to talk about Wreck-It Ralph 2, a.k.a. Ralph Breaks the Internet. So, we both saw this recently.
2 days ago.
2 days ago. And, we have all of these great game characters, mainly Nintendo characters.
Hardly any of which are actually in the movie.
Yeah.
Why are they all
with
here?
the exception of
Sonic and our boy
Pac-Man.
Pac-Man. Where's Bowser? You don't have
I
have a Bowser?
I have a Bowser hanging up over there somewhere.
And you didn't bring him.
I didn't
What
bring
is wrong
him.
with you?
Many things.
This is why no one watches these.
I did write a review for this on the site that maybe...
You wrote your first review.
I wrote my first
How
review
did that
for
feel?
the site. I had a lot of appreciation for what you and Andrew do on a weekly basis.
Do about 30 more, then we'll talk.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
Write one
Well,
on the Nutcracker.
You
Have fun with that.
You try running this YouTube channel and we'll talk.
I'm the one wearing the Luigi hat.
You try editing these videos. We'll talk anyway. So we're getting off track. Hey.
Where's that voice coming from? We're the only ones here.
Did you want to be on the podcast?
This place must be haunted.
I'm enjoying being over here.
Clearly. All right. So anyway,
So Ralph breaks the internet.
breaks the internet.
First of all, dumb name.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know why they didn't go with Ralph breaks the. Well, no, I don't know why they didn't go with Ralph wrecks the internet. I think that would have made a lot more sense.
Because breaks the internet appeals more to the masses. And even though they made a joke about that being the title in the trailer, Disney thinks they can get away with having a lame title just for pointing it out.
So much cynicism.
I'm a film critic.
I also feel very odd critiquing a film because I'm a filmmaker myself, and there's sort of this filmmaker code where you don't trash someone else's work.
It's not trashing.
No,
if
that's
it's
not.
true.
No, it's not trash.
And
trashing.
it's not. You can trash a movie and you can offer legitimate constructive criticism.
Right, and I'm not
fine
trashing the
line.
film because I really enjoyed the film.
I did too. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, and it's long awaited, and a lot of what I touched on in my review is that it feels a lot like getting together with a bunch of old friends you haven't seen in 6 years and kind of saying what they're up to.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways, it serves as a direct continuation.
Yeah, it picks up kind of right where they even mentioned in the movie it's been 6 years, and for them, life has kind of just gone on, and we're seeing them at just another point in their lives when something interesting is happening.
And they bring back pretty much every video game character that was in the first one,
but no new ones.
No new ones, and I was kind of
annoying.
I was disappointed. Now, Rich
like,
Moore,
why is Bowser there, but not any of these guys?
Rich Moore promised us Mario for the Wreck-It Ralph sequel, and I was
Where was he?
disappointed that he was not in. I was looking for him.
Do we think this may or may not have anything to do with it? I know that Detective Pikachu's coming out soon, early next year, and I know that Warner Brothers is producing that. So clearly, Warner Brothers has some deal with Nintendo. Do we think maybe the reason why a lot of Nintendo characters weren't in it is because of the sort of rivalry between Warner Brothers and Disney?
Warner Brothers has a deal with Pokemon. I believe that's their...
They do, but what I mean it may have nothing to do with it. It may just be me looking too deeply into it. But I know how bitter the studio rivalries are, and
I don't know. We'd have to look into that. That's too much side stuff. Anyway, so my initial reaction was, it was great to see all the characters again. I thought that I like that they spent a little time at the arcade. It's like, hey, we're remembering
to kind of refresh them. We got some time with Felix and I forget her name, Jane Lynch.
Sergeant Calhoun.
Sergeant Calhoun.
Who I think they were criminally underused.
I forgot they got together.
Yeah.
Because I meant to rewatch the first Wreck-It Ralph, but I didn't get a chance to. So when I saw it, I'm like, oh, that's right, they did get together. Because the last time I saw the first Wreck-It Ralph was 6 years ago.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I've seen it several times since
I think
then.
I think I like rented it when it first came out on DVD or something.
No. My now fiance and I saw the original in the theater 6 years ago.
Well, isn't that romantic?
Yes. Yeah, I thought it was great that they spent time back in the arcade, that they did not forget their roots. with the video game premise. I was okay with it going into the internet, going beyond the arcade. I mean, the gamer, the gamer in me was really hoping they would just do more video games and have it be more about that. But I'm like,
but
okay,
then that would just be a rehash of the first
it'd be a
one.
rehash.
They have to move. It was cool giving them that new setting to play with, and with the internet being what it is, there was a lot there. Mostly Disney.
Yeah,
mostly Disney.
And I like that, honestly. I thought it was really clever.
It was really cool to see. I mean, we now know. I mean, Disney owns so many properties, and this is really the only way you'll see it, other than like a parody video of all these intellectual properties interacting near and with each other.
Well, and it goes back to Who Framed Roger Rabbit in that same kind of vein. And I think in many ways, like, the first one was a love letter to video game characters. This one was a love letter to, I think, the internet and also Disney characters. And I thought, like, it's a little bit shameless plugging, but I thought, but it was enjoyable, and I thought it was great. They got almost all the voice actresses for the princesses back together.
They did. The only ones they didn't get were the ones like.
From like 60, 70
They didn't get
years
Snow White because that came out in the 30s, but every other one, including Ariel, Belle, those were the original voice actors, and it shows.
Yeah, and it was great that they make fun of sort of the tropes and.
I like the jab at what's her name from Brave when they're like, "Oh, she's from the other studio. We don't understand her."
Right. Yeah. So that kind of stuff, I thought that's really what made the movie work.
Was all the sort of self-aware. References
and that was they had that same kind of fun stuff in the first one. I think that also made the first one
but work. With this they could do a lot more, especially because this was produced by Disney. There was a lot more they could work with. We saw Stan Lee
briefly.
May he rest in
I
peace.
sort of missed him. He's the corner of my eye, and then by the time I looked up, he was gone.
I don't know that was that he didn't say anything, so I don't think he ever lended his voice towards it, but it was cool to see him, especially like that's still kind of really fresh and a sore spot for a lot of fans. It was cool to see him.
So, all these things you liked about the movie, did it match up to the original for you?
I mean, I think I went in with different expectations. I think you are much more of a gamer than I am.
Clearly, these are all mine.
Yeah, you say that like it's something to be proud of.
I am very proud.
And this is actually his hat.
And he's always been player too, so.
That's what I get for being the second child.
Yeah.
So you're definitely more of a gamer than I am, so I think you definitely love the first one more than I do.
Oh, I did.
Definitely hands down.
I argued that I thought it was the best Disney movie. I get that it's not everyone's favorite Disney movie. It was my favorite Disney movie.
Lion King, hands down. Not the new one that's not real live action. I don't care what they call it. I could talk about that later. So I think the first movie, story-wise and structurally, is a better movie. But I think that you probably liked the first one a lot more than this.
I did like it a lot.
Because I really enjoyed this one, but I love kind of self-aware. I love when a studio is willing to poke fun at itself. And I hadn't seen Disney really do that since Enchanted, which I know you also mentioned in your review. That it was them kind of making fun of their tropes while also still kind of doing them.
Yeah, no, I liked how meta it was. And
I liked how the princesses ended up saving him.
But and if you listen in the movie, like, you could hear a little bit of each princess's theme.
You could.
Which was great. Like, I thought that was amazing.
And they added a new Disney princess to the lineup. Penelope is technically now a Disney princess.
She was a Disney princess in the first one.
But they solidified it now.
Yeah. Of course. So
still no love for Giselle from Enchanted, though.
Yeah, well, that's complicated with the rights to the...
They would have had to pay Amy Adams for the rights to her likeness perpetually, and Disney wasn't willing to do that. Sorry, Amy Adams.
So
at least you won an Oscar.
I don't know. If you watch the Oscars, I don't watch the Oscars. Yeah. So my issues with the movie, I think, initially, just to say, like, I think I had extremely high expectations. And
coming from loving the first one as much as you did.
And that's hard to just follow up a movie that you absolutely love. I mean...
I think I went in with slightly lower expectations simply because as soon as I heard the title, Ralph Breaks the Internet, I think I knew going in, it's gonna be kind of gimmicky.
Yeah.
It's gonna be kind of cheesy, and I kind of went in with expecting that.
And here's the thing: the gimmicks work though.
It does.
Yeah.
But they're still gimmicks.
But they work though, and I think it worked for the comedy side of the movie. What I felt the movie was lacking in, I felt that the original had this, I think, a very, very original story, that we really don't see a whole lot of in movies. I think especially Disney movies, with some exceptions. But the idea that you think you want something and you try hard to be somebody that you dream of being, that everyone says, oh, you can't do this. For instance, like Mulan wants to go in the army, and everyone says she can't do it. And she goes and she accomplished it, and that's great, and that's a great message. But we've seen it so many times, and what was very different about the first Wreck-It Ralph was that, the story was be yourself and sort of accepting, what, some circumstances are never going to change,
but be proud of who
you are, and look at it from a new perspective, and that was so refreshing for me.
That's something that I feel like Shrek trolled Disney about 12 years earlier.
Yeah,
with the original Shrek.
That's
movie.
true. Yeah,
that was kind of turning that trope and flipping it, and then I feel like the first Wreck-It Ralph was Disney fully realizing that. As for that trope, though, it's older than you think. Wizard of Oz.
That's true.
The whole thing of, well, you had it all along.
But that's a little bit different, though. That's Wizard of Oz, was about a journey, and yeah, that's a very familiar trope. Like, you had it all along.
The same way that Ralph realizes that he's the bad guy.
How many characters in a movie have a dream to do something, and then they realize that that's not really the dream they want? Like, it feels like for the most part, especially these Disney movies, like they realize that it's sort of the underdog story.
Every romantic comedy I've ever seen, the main character thinks they want one person, but then they end up with the other person who was there from the beginning.
Yeah, but
not that I've seen that.
However,
many.
You don't see a lot of romantic movies where the guy wants to get with the girl, but then the guy's happy being single.
You don't see much of that.
And
that's
that's kind of the equivalence.
I also don't watch many romantic movies in general.
Yeah, sure you don't. So, yes. So I just thought that was just such a unique aspect and such a refreshing story with the first one. And for me, that was the best part of Wreck-It Ralph. The video game culture around it was like icing on the cake.
Like, that was just a bonus.
That was
a
bonus.
It was more about...
But the story and the characters and just being happy with your circumstances, that was very relatable to me at the time that I saw it.
This one, though, it's almost... I feel like the main character arc or character, storyline was more about Vanellope. This felt more like Vanellope's movie than it did Ralph's movie.
It did.
He felt more like a supporting character to her journey.
Well, it was. I felt that way too, where we did see more development with Vanellope, and I liked that aspect of it. But for me, her arc was way too easy. It was like, all right, she goes to this other game. Oh, she likes it, and then she decides to stay, and then Ralph can't deal with it. And I thought that was, I think that's an important message too. Like, I think that was relatable. Being happy for your friends and not being clingy. I thought that there was a great message of letting go. Which they had.
They had
to shoehorn into the movie somehow.
Of course they did.
Because the guys that made Frozen made Wreck-It Ralph.
They did, same studio.
Same
production.
I think same directors.
I
believe, yeah.
I believe that Wreck-It Ralph 2 had the voice of the wickedly talented Adele Dazeem. You don't get that, do you?
No, I don't.
You uncultured swine. In 2014, at the Oscars, Let It Go was up for Best Original Song.
Yeah.
And it was sung by the actress who voiced Elsa, Idina Menzel.
Uh-huh.
And John Travolta came out and said, now to perform Let It Go, the wickedly talented Adele Dazeem. And it was a big joke that he mispronounced her name.
That's such an obscure reference.
No, it's not.
An award.
Everyone on the internet knew about that.
Yeah, everyone knew about it on the internet for a day after, or a week after that. That was almost 5 years ago.
Look it up.
I know. I remember when it happened.
You do remember.
Yeah, but it's like, that's just such an odd reference to make to think I would... Thank you. Yeah, from our studio audience.
There's no studio. Who are you looking at? Who are you looking at?
But the message of letting a friend go and be happy and not... I think it's a great message of codependency.
Well, because so many of us, of people in general, you know, with our relationships, both romantically and even like, you know, friendship relationships, there's a tendency to feel like you want to put this person, this friend, in this little box, and like that's what they are, and you don't want that to change because you like that version of them, of them that relates to you. And when that person starts to change or starts to have their own journey, you know, there's that fear that, oh, does that mean we're not going to be friends anymore? Does that mean that I like things the way they were? And that's very much, I think it was a great continuation of Ralph's story from the first one. The whole first film is about him deciding that he's okay with things the way they are. And in this film, that is directly challenged. And that's partly why I think he goes so far to try to keep things as they were, because that was the whole point and message he learned in the first film.
And also, his friendship with Vanellope, we see at the end of the first one, that was kind of the one thing that kept him going with, you know, because I don't know if you remember, like, the last scene is, you know, they're about to throw him off the building, and he said you can see Vanellope, and that's friend. It's a very beautiful moment. And so for him to, like, let that go, it did make sense, and I agree with that. However, I did not think that was as unique or novel of a message as the first one. And it's hard to match that.
It can't be. You can't catch lightning twice.
Yeah, and you kind of, you know, that's sort of the...
You had to know going in, though, it wasn't going to be...
I figured.
Quite...
I glanced at the Rotten Tomatoes scores and I'm like, oh, 86, okay. Like, I'm...
That site is not at all accurate. Never look at that again.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Well, it'll tell you something's really bad. But... I did think that Ralph clones going, friend? I mean, that to me felt...
How many of us know someone like that?
We know somebody like that.
Everyone in the world. And if you don't know someone like that, it's you.
It's you. Yes.
You're that person. Am I the only one when they all, like, congregate together into the giant mass? They look just like the zombies from World War Z. Am I the only one that thought that?
I didn't think World War Z, but I
when,
thought...
like, they all come together as, like, one massive
supposed to
thing.
Be zombies, but, yeah, I feel like we're going to get messages now. Like, were you talking about me?
We will.
From, like, a bunch of people.
Hey, Dave, you didn't mean me, right? You're still my friend. And I'll be like, dude, what? So loud. What are you saying? I'm not that loud.
So loud. The other issue I have, so the original movie, the whole premise of the original movie is, you know, the video game characters, the mythology, I think, the great part of the first movie is the inclusion of Turbo, who is, you know, we find out has been masquerading as King Candy for however many years, and he's taken over Sugar Rush. And, you know, all the video game characters warn Ralph, you know, about game jumping. Like, oh, you're not going to go Turbo, are you? And it seems like there's this understanding that, you know, you can game jump, but you can't do it, like, permanently. Like, it's...
You got to be back in your game, and it's...
By morning.
Yeah.
You know, something like that, which is, hey, that's fine. Those are the rules. And that seemed to be the main message of the first one. Is like, be who you are. Don't change that. You can't change the programming, this and that.
And this one.
This one, Vanellope's like, I'm going to just join this other game. They're not going to miss me in Sugar Rush. And, you know, and that's fine if she realizes that, but there's no struggle there. I don't think there was any struggle for her to realize that that's what she wanted to do.
She just knew that from the beginning.
Yeah.
I want to point out, so the whole no game jumping, you got to stay in your game. I love how Felix was like, Ralph, I'll cover for you. Am I the only one that kind of wanted to see what that was like?
No, I did. And I was
like,
really...
Felix trying to fit, like, it's already fixed. There's nothing to do. Or like, what's her name? Captain, Sergeant Calhoun filling in as, like, destroying the building for Ralph. That would have been
amazing.
One scene they could have done. And that would have been, like, just what's the arcade doing while Ralph is out doing
and they
this?
spent so much time on that in the first one, and they couldn't even show one clip of him destroying the building, and even like a callback or something, or especially because he's gone for like a day, you know. So why wouldn't his game get unplugged? Because that's what happened in the first one when he didn't show up for work. So it's stuff like that bothered me. And
I think that it was because they wanted the focus to be on the internet, which I like their portrayal of the internet. It got a little dangerously close to the Emoji Movie.
I value my brain cells, so I didn't see the Emoji Movie.
Don't.
Have you seen it?
I've seen terrible things. That's all I'll say.
Okay, well.
All I'm saying is that visual representations of the internet is nothing new. They did kind of a cool job. I liked I like the idea of eBay being like an auction, even though Futurama did it years ago.
Yeah, but it was funny. Like, and you'd have Ralph and Vanellope like just yelling high numbers and
I like the idea of these these pop-up ads being like these swindling salesmen who come up and solicit you like, hey, want to buy this?
Yeah. No, I thought that was really well done. I thought the portrayal of the internet. I also was thinking, like, how did Ralph make all these viral videos like so quickly? Like, did he take like a quick class?
I'm not sure.
In Adobe Premiere.
I also want to know, all the people watching these videos, where did they think they came from? Like, in that moment, Ralph transcends the game and shows a version of himself that is self-aware to the world. How is that not its own movie?
People just think that that's an animation of some kind. I think that was the idea, is that they thought somebody... And that happens. Like, there are people online that will upload content that you don't know who they are. I mean, somebody could probably figure it out.
Yeah.
But in a day, like, they just like, oh, like, there's this... It would be like if somebody had suddenly made, like, Bowser videos on YouTube that were really funny.
I would watch that.
Right, and that was kind of the idea. And I love that they make reference. Oh, you remember that old arcade villain, Wreck-It Ralph from the 80s? Oh, look, he's back. And I thought that was cool. I didn't think that the virus thing lasted too long. Like, to me, there wasn't as much at stake in this one. It didn't feel like there was as much of a sense of urgency, which I think also...
And maybe that's not a bad thing. Not every film needs to have high stakes with world-ending consequences.
But I think this one had to, because, I mean, the first one, it was the arcade. We were in the world of the arcade. The world that ends is the arcade game, one of the arcade games.
So you're saying that this one should have raised the stakes?
Should have been the internet, because I mean that's...
You sound like every studio pumping out a sequel. This time it's bigger, better, more is at stake.
But doesn't it make more sense that it's bigger and that there has to be some kind of...
I'm just saying that sometimes smaller stakes feel more realistic because they're more realistic stakes.
I didn't feel that was the case in this one. I felt like that was... And, again, with Vanellope so easily... Like, yeah, it is her story, but she doesn't really have any conflict to attain it. Like, yes, she doesn't want to tell Ralph, and she's conflicted there, and there's a little bit there. But, she doesn't have any reservations about quitting Sugar Rush. And, and she's also the most popular character in the game, and she's like, people aren't going to notice. And, again, you have to look back at, like, Turbo did the same thing, more or less, and he's the bad guy in the first one, and I felt that the movie was very inconsistent with its own mythology.
Well, it's what happens when your sequel comes out 6 years later, and the studio is assuming many people seeing this film have not actually seen the first one.
No, but but then why have all this callbacks to the first one? I mean, all the characters, for
the same reason those characters were in the first one, just to reference them.
Yeah, but no, if you've never seen the first one, you have no idea how Fix-It-Felix fits into things. Or Sergeant Calhoun, or why they're married.
No, but you can interpret a lot, and you can infer a lot based. I'm just saying that a lot of times when fans say, "Oh, well, why didn't they think of this?" or "Why is this inconsistent?" Same thing. I tell it when anyone says that, I say, because you're thinking about it more than the writers and producers are.
I probably
because you care for continuity more than they do.
But they still included things like the glitch. Like, that was a big thing with the first one, and that was still in this one. And I thought that's kind of a
And I'm not saying... I get what you're saying, that they're inconsistent with which continuities add up and which ones doesn't. I'm saying they don't care enough to do that.
No, I mean, clearly.
They don't.
They don't care
Your
enough.
opinion does not matter to them. They're Disney.
Did you think...
They're an evil empire.
Okay. Did you think that... and I know you and I always talk about this, about you like it when there's a literal villain of some kind. A literal antagonist, like a physical antagonist, and there really wasn't one this time. Did you feel like the movie suffered in that way?
Well, I mean, they're kind of the closest you get to it is the virus itself is something of an antagonist,
but it's certainly not an aware,
I think it depends on the story. I think some stories you need one, other ones it's less necessary. It depends. I think that if I had to put my finger on what the antagonist was in this, it was sort of Ralph's own insecurities, and then they physically manifest and become a tangible antagonist with the army of Ralph zombie things that are saying friend.
Yeah.
Which, again, no, it's not you. Stop emailing me.
If you're wondering if this is about you, it's not.
But it probably is if you're thinking that hard about it.
Oh, boy.
We're going to get a lot of hate for this.
Yeah, if they watch our stuff. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I kind of missed I thought Turbo was a great villain. I mean, that I love that the first one established a mythology, and then it paid off, in the end.
I'm not a friend of the surprise villain trope, though. I think to me, the best villains aren't the ones that a twist at the end of the second act reveals they're the villain. The best villains are the ones that are just as well developed and driven as the.
But it was different. I was thinking about it too. I mean, yeah, it's not really the surprise villain though, because King Candy was the villain. You know what I mean? And just
the whole thing with him being Turbo was a twist, and
yeah, but he was still the antagonist.
But he's the antagonist in the same sense that Ralph is. He's the villain because he's supposed to be the villain of the game. Turbo was not meant to be that kind of villain. He was doing his own thing. He was like an Agent Smith. That's a Matrix reference for you youngins out there. Watch the first one. Don't bother with the second two.
But all that was with King Candy was it was showing that he was an even bigger villain than they realized. He was already a villain. And I just made it like, oh, holy crap, it's that guy.
But who would have been the villain in this one?
I don't know. I was just asking you if you thought that made a difference, because you often lobby for the antagonist, for a tangible antagonist. But
I lobby for the antagonist because I often sympathize and side with him.
Yeah, that's why he's player 2, or it's because he's player 2.
Team Scar for life.
Yeah, there we go.
He doesn't like that reference because Scar killed his brother.
Help me. It felt a little underwhelming. That's kind of how I felt in the end. It felt,
and I think you went into it. I went in and I got exactly what I was expecting out of it.
Okay.
I think maybe you went in, expecting too much, and I can kind of sympathize. Like, as you know, Dark Knight, greatest movie ever made. Not opinion, fact. So when I went into The Dark Knight Rises, I had extremely high expectations.
Yeah,
and it's not as good. It's not, and I wish it was.
But it's still good.
But it's still good.
But it's not as good.
So what I'm saying is, I think that's kind of how you're feeling now.
This is my Dark Knight Rises.
Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. I can relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of room to do more. If they were to do a third one, or I honestly wonder if it'd be better as like a Netflix series or something.
I mean, there's so many other characters you could expand upon. I almost think maybe this one would have worked better had Vanellope just been the main character.
Yeah,
because she kind of is, but not really.
Yeah, but they, again with her coming to the realization, I thought she had a poor arc. I thought that to me that was the biggest sin of the movie, was that Vanellope is more in the spotlight and she has a bad arc. I think everything else worked pretty well. And
maybe if they do a third one, they can invest. Maybe she can have some sort of, regret or remorse, like something she misses about the arcade.
Right. But yeah, no, I mean, I thought it was very faithful to the fans of the first one, and
what would also be interesting to see? Characters from the internet crossing over into the arcade. Yeah. Because we saw that Ralph and Vanellope could get out. What if someone else could come in?
Well, I was thinking about this today, that, all of it's sort of like Toy Story, where you sort of know they all have an expiration date. It's like, okay, when are they going to get thrown into the dump? And it's
when are their games going to get
unplugged? When are their games going to get unplugged? And that almost is a little more terrifying, because that's like a whole world that is just kind of wiped out, and you wonder, has there never been a power outage at this arcade? Is there ever? And you look at the plugs that are all plugged in, and that is such a fire hazard.
I know. So what you're saying is, do you feel like every time you turned off or unplugged your video game, you were ending their existences forever, and that when you turned it back on, they were just copies of it, but they weren't those original ones?
I mean, I didn't think about that till now, but yes.
How many thousands or millions of these video game characters have you murdered?
Well, that's why I try to get as many lives as possible.
How do you sleep at night?
I sleep with these corpses right here. That's what I do.
He calls me the crazy one. He said he sleeps with corpses.
Yeah.
I just want to point that
out. Anyway.
How did we get to here?
I don't know. But I wondered about, like, wouldn't it be interesting if all the characters from the arcade, like, the arcade's going to shut down someday.
It has to. I'm surprised it's still open.
I mean, he seems like he's, Ed O'Neill, that's pretty good business. Mr. Lutwick. And wouldn't it kind of make sense for all those characters to kind of wind up on the internet? Because that seems like that's almost like a permanent, like that never gets turned off. That's always on.
Like maybe the arcade would shut down, but they could have a second life in like, well, now you're in the Sugar Rush app. Now you're in the Wreck-It Ralph app. And
that would make sense to me that they would escape to the internet, and they would.
It is a natural place to go, and maybe in another 6 years, it's where it'll go.
I think it would be great to see these characters again. At some point, I'd say give it some time, but they're very likable, and I had the same feeling when I left. And like it was like catching up with old friends, even if I wasn't totally crazy with the choices they made. So
that's half of catching up with old friends.
Yeah.
You've been up to what?
That's
you
true.
Invested in what?
Yeah. Seeing a lot of friends this weekend, So.
Yeah. It is Thanksgiving weekend.
Yes. Anyway, well, thanks for watching, and
we don't know why you do, but thank you.
And visit us, storkdaily.com. We'll see you next time at Philly Film Brothers Podcast.
We will be back with
something.
Aquaman.
Oh boy, I thought maybe we'd do Creed 2.
Or let's do Creed 2.